All right, so this lecture is very specific towards choosing your fabric for the t-shirt project. If you think about the t-shirts that you wear, they have a little bit of stretch. So your t-shirt fabric that you purchase for making your own t-shirt has to be a knit fabric. A knit fabric can be made of virtually any fiber, although they're often made of cotton or polyester. But a knit stretches because of the way that it's woven or knitted together, not because of its particular fiber. So you could put some spandex into a knit fabric, which would increase the stretch, but you could also have a fiber like cotton that doesn't stretch on its own. If it were woven, it wouldn't stretch at all. But when knitted in the interlocking looping pattern, it stretches. So I'm going to show you, and this chart is on Canvas, and I'm going to show you kind of some principles of deciding how much a fabric stretches and if that's appropriate for this project. So for this project, you do have quite a bit of leeway. You can choose something that's patterned. You can choose something that is solid. Just by happenstance, actually, all of the knits that I'm going to be using as examples today are solid colors. But you can see that the shirt I'm wearing today is a type of knit. It's called a ribbed knit, so it's got these ridges in it. People for the t-shirt have used rib knits, they've used 4-way stretch, they've used 2-way stretch. It's really up to you what you choose, although it does have to be a knit fabric. You want a light to medium weight knit, so you don't want to have something like a big Sherpa, knit or something like that for a t-shirt. You don't really want that kind of fabric. So light to medium weight. And you want it to have a relaxed recovery, which means that it will come back into place and it doesn't remain stretched out if you stretch it. And then the fabric should stretch at least 40% in the crosswise and 30% in the lengthwise grain. So basically what that means is, well, we're going to test some stretching. We have this little chart to show us what 30% stretch is or what 40% stretch is, because it's hard to kind of quantify in our brains what that might mean. So the first thing we're going to do is we have this fabric, okay? We're going to test the stretch of it by using this little chart, and it's pretty self-explanatory, but it says hold fabric here. So I'm going to have one edge that I line up along here, and I'm actually going to flip this so that I can see my percentages. So I'm going to hold fabric here. That means that, and you could do this like in the middle, whatever, but I'm just going to line up the edge because that's easier. So I'm going to line this up right here. Then it says grab and pull from here. So you can see that this is 4 inches away. So I'm going to, and actually the scale that I printed this at is just a teeny bit less than this, but even if you are using your screen and you don't print this out, it's going to be a good gauge for you. So if I hold this on the hold line over here, and then I grab it and pull from here, so this arrow is pointing here. Now these grid lines are showing me how much stretch it has. So this, if it stretches, if I grab from here and I can pull it just a little more than an inch, that's going to be 30% stretch. If I can pull it a little further, that's 40%, 50% stretch to here, 75 and 100% stretch. So we're looking for 30% stretch, or excuse me, we'll start with 40. 40% stretch on the crosswise grain. So crosswise is going perpendicular to my selvage. My selvage goes all the way down the long length of the fabric, and then this is crosswise. So first I'm going to test crosswise. So I'm going to hold right here, I'm going to grab right here, and I'm going to pull, and I'm just going to see how far it can stretch. So it can stretch 100%. Now it doesn't look very pretty, and actually this fabric doesn't have a super great recovery. You can actually still see where I was grabbing, and you can see I've stretched this a little out of whack. But it does have 100% or maybe even a little bit more stretch. No, about 100% stretch, okay? So that means that would function more than okay for my crosswise grain. Then I simply rotate my fabric and I'm going to test it on the lengthwise grain. And I'm going to rotate my fabric here. So here we go. I'm going to go my lengthwise grain. So my lengthwise grain goes the length of, parallel down the length of my selvage. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to hold it here. I'm going to grab here, and the requirements for this t-shirt that we're making are that I have at least 30%. So I need to be able to stretch from here to here. We'll see if I have that. So I do just barely. Okay, it just barely made it 30%. So that looks like this fabric would be a contender for the t-shirt. Okay, I'm just going to show you this maybe one. Yeah, I'll just show you one more time with this. So I have this t-shirt or this knit fabric. It's like quite buttery soft on both sides, so it's like they have a brushed finish on it, so it's really, really soft. And they call this a 4-way stretch. So on this one, on any knit, you're going to have a difference between the lengthwise and crosswise stretch. But in this one, it was quite distinct. Okay, with a 4-way stretch, it's going to be a little less obvious which way has more stretch, because it is quite stretchy in both directions. So I'm just going to show you again how to test this. Again, you don't have to print out a piece of paper. You could literally use your computer screen, and you could hold your piece of fabric and pull it, and that would work just great. So my selvage is right here. I can tell because it's kind of curling and it's got the punched holes in it. So I'm going to go the crosswise grain first, and I need 40% stretch at least. So I'm going to hold this here. I'm going to grab right here where it says, and I'm going to pull. And this has more than 100% stretch, and it bounces back quite nicely, you can see. Okay, just barely where I grabbed that, but that'll leave in, a minute or two. So that has pretty nice recovery, and it stretches more than 100% in the crosswise grain. Now we're going to test it along the lengthwise grain. I'm just going to rotate that over here. So I'm going to do this on the end. So I'm going to hold here, grab here, and that stretches maybe 60%, so that's great. And if I were to, just as an example, try it from here and grab here, it's almost 75. So we've got a good amount of stretch. So that's a 4-way stretch knit. Like I said before, it's really up to you. This fabric that I have right here would also work. It's maybe a little bit less conventional, but it's like a terry cloth, so the knit is on the front, and then there are these loops on the back. So you have lots of options when it comes to choosing your knit, but make sure that you look at this chart and you determine whether your t-shirt has enough stretch to be used for this particular project.